Dave's going to introduce our next talk.
Actually, I'm just going to hand over to Maria-Luce, who is going to run the panel. So over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm really glad to be here today as a moderator for the opening panel on the future of design and AI relations. I'm Maria-Luce Lupetti. I'm an assistant professor in interaction and critical design at the Department of Human-Centered Design and Faculty of Industrial Design Engineering here at the TU Delft. And yeah, we are going to discuss with our fantastic panelists that come from a range of creative practices and integrate and discuss relationship with AI in their daily work. So I would say I'll invite you all here to join me. And then we introduce one by one. The clicker.
I think we missed the chair.
I don't think so.
No, it's fine. Okay, this was for me for introducing. So, like as a first thing, I would like to introduce one.
The guy blocking the screen.
You are to be, yeah. Okay. So, as a panelist today, we will have Baptiste Caramiaux. I hope pronunciation is fine. Baptiste is currently a CNRS researcher at EACR, sorry for this, at Sorbonne University in Paris, in the HCI Sorbonne group. He will tell us more about also his work. And then we have Cristina Zaga, who is an assistant professor also in design and transdisciplinary methodologies at University of Twente. Sorry, next page. And then we have Grace Turtle, designer, artist, and currently PhD researcher in the Decode network. And finally, Kars Alfrink, also PhD candidate in design at TU Delft. All of them will have some time, some minutes to introduce themselves. And I would like you to also explain a bit how your research practices actually intersect with AI. So as we saw, we have Kars. You have some minutes, so please go ahead.
All right, okay. Thanks, Maria-Luce. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so you had this provocation, right, in the previous slide that you wanted us to comment on.
Yes,
and the key thing there is, I think you're talking about better relations between people and AI. Throughout doing the PhD, nearing the end now, one of the tricks I've learned from my supervisors is better how, right? So what do we mean when we say better? And I guess you deliberately left that ambiguous. But for me, in my own work, I focus on what I call public AI systems, so the use of AI in local governments. And the ways in which these systems can harm people's autonomy. So the better in my case is really ensuring that these systems respect autonomy. And the way I do that is by developing a kind of new ways of designing public AI systems for contestability, which is to say that they are somehow open and responsive to dispute by citizens. And so that can be on a local level when a system makes a decision that impacts someone adversely and gives them the means of appealing that decision. But also on a global level, of course, the ongoing design and development processes that produce these systems can be considered kind of political arenas, and so opening that up for contestation by citizens is the other way in which I try to kind of improve that relationship, so to speak. So that's what I do. And before I go on for too long, I mean, there's a lot to say, I guess, about play and experimentation and all the rest, but I guess I'll leave it there.
So thank you, Kars. We move on with Grace. So also a couple of minutes for you to introduce yourself.
Okay, so I think I'll start with play because that's where you that's the last word you said. Play is very central to all of my work, all of my practice in industry and now in the PhD. And the way that I looking at AI is really from this position of play, of embodied play, play with self, play with community, play with territory, to try and really mess with what AI is and how we understand it and the logic of AI. So I would say that the way my research is unfolding is very much around disrupting the ontological grounds of AI, not really having a center of where that is. And that kind of is really coming from queer practices and so queer theory, performance studies, which is very much coupled with queer theory to interrogate or to recode how we understand AI. So with that, coming from queer perspectives, I look at 3 ways to kind of undo AI, to remake it. And that is looking at mutation, how we can see AI from this position of mutation, from borderlands perspective. So, you know, we all understand, probably in this room, what is binary code and kind of extremes of kind of nature, culture, object, subject. And I look at ways that you can disrupt this through borderlands perspectives that looks at everything being all at once. And currently, I'm really delving into a theory of disidentification, which very specifically comes from queer performance studies. And I look at this very much in relation to predictive systems, how we co-predict, how we co-perform with AI. And in that, as a queer subject, I take on these very kind of auto-ethnographic or auto-theoretical positions in my play and experimentation. So that practically looks like building simulations, mostly. I'm a bit obsessed with simulations. This is a simulation of myself that I did recently, where I multiplied myself and spoke with myself. So again, that kind of engages with this more playful, critical way to unravel how we know or come to know with AI.
Fantastic. Thank you. Oh, sorry. And then we have Cristina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I want just to know from the audience, because I also want you to be energized after lunch, who of you does not have a classical design background or education? Hands up. Yes.
Fantastic.
So I come from where you're coming from, so just for you to know. At the moment, I'm working mainly on methodological work, on transdisciplinarity, which is a mouthful of a word and it's opaque for a lot of people, so I will be a bit less opaque in a second. But I come from studying the interaction between humans and robots, and specifically robots that can behave not only functionally alongside humans for tasks, but also socially, somewhat socially at least socially in human terms. And I have worked a lot with kids in that space, and my work is characterized by trying to challenge the status quo, because when I was in the computer science department in human-robot interaction, I was a bit uneasy about how we were designing robots for humans, and because the main narrative was, well, robots are useful, they're helpful, they're going to be changing society for the better, but without any questioning, any reflection whatsoever. And also with, if I might say, just to be provocative, because I like to do that, with a bit of epistemic arrogance, which practically means with the fact that, well, we are academics, we know, etc. And definitely, and I only can speak for robots because that's where my expertise lays, yeah, useful. They're fantastic. They can actually support our everyday life and maybe also our well-being if we want. But we need to really understand where they are situated. They are situated in an ecosystem. And I believe they should be demystified. And yet another difficult word, which simply means we do have narratives and ideas around robots that are about almost the Übermensch, right? Something that is beyond our capabilities, that is all understanding, all able, almighty almost, and it can help us. But that's usually not the case. And the other side of the coin is that we are designing it. So there's a relationship also of almost mirroring what we are in terms of society. So given this premise, what I have worked a lot in these few years is to try to understand how to take into account the ecosystem where we are in when we are designing, for example, robots, through demystifying lens, and taking into account the power that embodied AI in this sense has in society, the power of change the way we live, the way we look at the world, and the way we relate to each other. And specifically through these relation lenses is where I'm situating myself now. And I'm trying to understand how to make sure that we are not creating, again, Übermensches or whatever, super mega humans, and then we are forgetting who are the people that are not humans. And provocatively, again, I would say I'm not a human, for example, for a lot of people, because people that are considered humans are typically the people that are at the center. And in the Western society, we have seen that at the center you have a certain type of gender, a certain type of culture, and a certain type of economic status. And a lot of other people are at the periphery, and they do not have a say of what's going on and about the technology that we are designing for them, and most of the time not with them. And at the same time, this type of periphery construction, I want to dismantle it, so create decentering, but also create, again, some sort of epistemic justice so that we can take into account not only the humans that are at the periphery, but also the ecosystem that is at the periphery, such as nature and animals that are around us. It's very complex. It sounds a bit like hippie, almost, but the point is that that's what to me means transdisciplinarity. So really thinking about what is the social challenge that we have here? Okay, that's my research question. Who are the agents there? How do they relate with each other? What can we do about? And bringing that into the design process, but not only from the designer perspective, but also taking into account all the other disciplines that are there, including stakeholders and the so-called citizens, which I prefer to call communities, and make sure that these things are working. Because I bet, and then we can discuss about it a bit later, that if you're coming from a technical group and you're doing fantastic research, you are very willing, very eager to figure it out how to be more ethical, more responsible, more society-oriented, more ecosystemic-oriented, but all the things that maybe us as designers or ethicists or social scientists bring to the table are super difficult to implement technically. And that bridge, it's something that I really would like to create and not keep the gap. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Then last but not least, Baptiste.
Okay, thank you very much. But thank you for the invitation, and I'm really glad to share this panel with these amazing researchers, designers, artists. So for my side, I mean, I'm part of CNRS, which is the French National Center for Scientific Research in France, and I'm a HCI researcher, so I'm doing research in human-computer interaction. The thing is, I came across, let's say, AI design and human-computer interaction because I did my PhD in musical interaction at IRCAM. And so basically back then I was really interested in machine learning, how you can use machine learning in order to build expressive musical interactions. So the idea was really like how we can build algorithms that are able to, capture movement expressivity and translate this movement expressivity into sounds and music. So I work a lot with musicians and dancers and performers at IRCAM, but also at Goldsmiths in London. That at that time was really pioneering in creative computing, practice-based research. So I learned also. I started to include this, having myself a background in applied mathematics. I started to bring into my research more methodology from, practice-based research or first-person perspective rather than maybe third-person perspective and so on. And the thing is, I guess it's at that time where with my students and myself, I started actually to look at machine learning algorithm, not only as a tool that, for instance, meant to recognize gesture or movements, but also taking into account all the process that was actually involved in order to build that tool. So we started really to think about the design process of this algorithm and started to think about machine learning or AI in a way as a material to build what we would like to build. And that was really enabled through very much experimentation, exploration, and play, but play maybe in a more musical sense. So in my research, I really started to think about, as I said, like machine learning as material for design, but then also by bringing this kind of technology closer to the people. So in the same way we were actually working with artists and trying to build algorithms or techniques for their performance or collaborating with them, it was also, we really realized that it was super important to create interactivity or to allow them to have agencies on this technology. So to be able for them to just tweak the model, tweak the data set, trying things out. And this, I have been done quite a lot of research in that area, which is called in HCI interactive machine learning. And it's really decided to bringing this technology closer to the end users or other stakeholders. Not only in creative practices, but we have also a project in the medical field, for instance. And maybe lastly, all this process, when you start to think about, or you start to, let's say, involve or integrate AI technology or machine learning technology in this situated context, it can be an art project, or it can be an hospital. Obviously, there's all this context that you have to take into account, all the socio-technical context that you have to take into account. Who are the users? Who are the stakeholders? What are their practices? What are their work politics and so on? And so in the last, my current research is really trying to bring all this together, which means not only having a tool that will maybe solve problems, but also thinking about the technology as a material that can be designed, but taking into account also the culture of the context. So I guess that's kind of joining several things that has been said, which means like trying really to be able to be collaborative, to be participatory, and to at the same time intervene in the context with machine learning or with technology, but at the same time being an observer and doing research on this intervention.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for these introductions. A lot of things that have been said indeed connect a lot. We have this notion of contestations toward AI, demystification, and unmaking AI. And the way I see all these actions also are really engaged in multiplying possibilities and views and narratives we have around AI. And I think the role of play and creative designers and creative practitioners in that is really key, and we started to hear something about it. And maybe I have a question for all of you to start up, and later we open also for questions to the audience. So if we need to go beyond disciplines, and I connect to this notion of transdisciplinarity, what's the point of doing a panel on design and AI? Somebody would like to start with that?
So your
Otherwise we go.
Why are we here?
Why are we here?
Yeah, okay.
It's always the best question. I don't know, I might So, for example, in the Design Research Society, the people that are doing transdisciplinarity are asking the very same question besides AI. So maybe I can bring that discussion here. The point is that the epistemology, so the way of knowing of design, and the way of, I don't want to say thinking, but the way of practicing design, it's really helpful to understand what's happening in various ways of working and play around with methods, outlooks, mindsets, worldviews. It provides, I think, the building blocks, the tools that we could use to go towards understanding the intersections, entanglements and disentanglements with AI, as well as being able to be a bit outside the research discourse, in the sense that we have a tradition in design sometimes of not being, you know, the center of the epistemic work of the knowing, but using materiality to do that, or being the facilitator of others that are doing that. And I think these type of practices could be very useful, and that's why design is the perfect starting point to breach beyond disciplines. Some people call it a piece of a puzzle, some people call it the binding glue. I do believe it's simply the epistemological and methodological toolbox that we could use in that direction.
Somebody would like to jump in?
Yeah, I can jump in, and because I mean, to me, it's also an opportunity maybe to disentangle a bit these two words, or this mix of design AI. What do we design AI discipline? And it's a good moment maybe to also think about what is this concept that we are talking about. I mean, I guess we are talking about AI, but AI is also really ambiguous concept, ambiguous terminology that is highly politically, loaded. And I personally prefer to talk about machine learning, even though a learning machine, that's also strange. And we can discuss that, but at least it's closer to the technical aspect that I think focusing on. But so yeah, I guess why we are here maybe is also to understand, okay, AI is this thing that maybe we don't really understand what it is really, or there is a lot of lobbying on what it can be or it should be. And I think design can, as you say, like actually this is maybe the right practice or the right methodology to sort out, figure out what it is, and yeah.
Thank you. Great, please.
I think I have a slightly different outlook on this. I have like a very real concern for industry, the design industry right now, in their kind of early adoption of AI tools applied to old ways of doing design. And I think it's very problematic, and something that I try to bring into my research is understanding ways that AI, machine learning, algorithms close futures or open them. So in my practice, I'm constantly trying to find ways to break the AI to be able to open futures and not close them. And I think that for me is the most critical thing for the design industry in terms of design and AI, because the kind of overuse or over-reliability on tools, particularly, let's say, ChatGPT, to do everything from, just a basic case of service design to make a blueprint or to synthesize insights, it diminishes knowledge and projects knowledge in very particular ways that I think is quite scary in the way that it can close futures and project particular narratives. And I'm immediately thinking of this morning because maybe you have seen, people are doing this experiment right now with ChatGPT, saying, do Palestinians deserve freedom and do Israelis deserve freedom? And it's really disturbing, the result of what is being said. And so this kind of really, it's like a very simple example of ways that knowledge can be codified and then washed down and then produces particular narrative scripts and particular futures and leads us into particular directions. And the design world is very quick to adopt these tools and just apply them to practice as usual. So for me, that's kind of the point of why we should be having this conversation.
Thank you for this very different angle. I think we really need to address both this more opportunity perspective and also the risks. Kars, would you like to add something?
I don't know. I mean, I certainly agree. I think there's this dynamic where technologies can also shape design practice, and indeed, then if AI as currently practiced is very much like hegemonic, where one particular way of understanding a thing is kind of imposed, then that might lead to a design practice that is also less diverse, so to say. On the other hand, of course, we have a rich tradition of design. I mean, my design heroes are ones that looked at design as an emancipatory practice, right? Like people like Papanek and Gibbon Shep and those kinds of people. And so, in the context of the work that I do, I think there's a real opportunity. So there's design practice, there's design research. For me, at least at this point, where I'm at in my research is to bring alternative understandings of AI, so to say, to design practitioners who are now tasked to build actual systems in the world, right? That are kind of labeled AI. I mean, but those are of course a very diverse range of technologies in and of themselves. So, yeah, I think, but these people are in places of power. They can shape systems, if not totally, then at least in part. So yeah, I think clearly seeing what's at stake, and for us as researchers, being able to kind of have some critical distance from technology hype, and then translating that into more sensible, more emancipatory design practices is I think why there is a point to having a design and AI panel.
Fantastic. So we know we are doing a meaningful thing. Okay, so maybe we can open at this point to the audience if there are questions about the future of design and AI relations. Otherwise, I can always go on. Yes, please, Mina. Oh yeah, there should be a volunteer, a student helping out. Yeah.
Hi, I'm just reiterating a question I was discussing with a friend of mine who's more in the industry. And one thing he was wondering was the language we use surrounding AI and design. In that many of us are perhaps academics or have some relation to academia, and practitioners, maybe that doesn't represent you very well, but even the discourse we use to talk about what is AI, to talk about what is design, might feel very exclusive to those who understand it. And so that might put off a lot of people who want to participate in this discourse from engaging with us. So then that actually goes against design being this emancipatory force, which I totally believe in, but somehow I think we might lose touch with the very people we're trying to reach. So in what ways do you think we could change that, at least starting with the language we might use to discuss these topics?
Fantastic, thank you. Somebody would like to answer that?
Well, I mean, a quick response would be to go to where they are, right? So sure, language is part of it, but if you force yourself to enter into the spaces where non-academics are sorting these things out, then and you kind of engage with them. So rather than them engaging with you, you engaging with them, so to speak, And then that also forces you to adapt your language and bring something that is meaningful to those groups. That's part of it, at least, I think. Can be hard, so I guess part of that is also building relationships with other communities and reaching out. Yeah.
But maybe part of the process that we have when we collaborate with industry or when we are collaborating with community is to do a bit of work to find common language and common ground, because in any case, we are going to start from different perspectives and point of view. So that is something very important. And I think one key word that maybe sometimes is missing also in design is reflexivity. So about what are you doing and what are you doing with others, for others, and etc. And so definitely we need to also rethink the way we are propagating certain mystifications as well through language. And another thing that I think is very important is I very much believe in the principles of the design justice, that of course they want to extend the participation of the design of AI to communities. At the same time, I share the concerns that actually Luce has written on a book that we co-authored related to the participation trope and the fact that participation is also sometimes a replication of certain power structures. So I think that is something that us as designers really need to take into account. I don't think we do have answers yet, but we do need to have ways to find common language, common ground, and wave in reflexivity so that when we are working with communities, either of practitioners or with communities of citizens or whatever that is, we can actually work together, starting from the fact that we need to start to really reflect about our, as I was saying before, epistemic arrogance, right? So that we do have a position of power nevertheless, and we are more close to the people that have even more power in industry to bring about solutionist perspectives and techno-optimist perspectives. And I know that you might not share this with me because I know you very well, but I'm also quite afraid about transhumanist perspective in the way they are now used. And transhumanist is this idea that AI can empower us, make us more, stronger, better, whatever. It's a bit I call it the Elon Musk way, but it's what it became in the last few years, and that's what I also share, the same type of fear that Grace was sharing, and the language is the first starting point.
I want to just build on that, on reflexivity, and maybe it's more than language, but literacy around critical reflection and reflexivity within industry. Industry is very much shaped around doing. They have to do things. They're paid to do things. Designers love methods, they love process, they want to follow a way to do a thing that produces good results, and there is very little critical reflexivity built into design literacy when it's applied and templated and done in a way that it's repeatable, which is really what you kind of need and how industry kind of functions. And if there is this space for more critical reflexivity within industry, then you automatically open up more spaces for dialogue and bridging between, let's say, academia and industry specifically, or working directly with different communities.
Great. I think you also have practical experience in that direction, right? I mean, really connecting with communities, enabling.
Yeah, sure.
So.
Yeah, because what I wanted to say about your question is that I'm really I really don't like the terminology we're using when we're working in this field and artificial intelligence. First, Because as I mentioned, doesn't mean much to me and too many. But at the same time, it's like. I mean, at the same time, I guess we are here also because we are involved or interested in AI, whatever it means. So in a way, it's kind of inclusive, although it has been, it is really problematic, and also the culture around AI is highly problematic in the way it's prescriptive in terms of knowledge transmission, discrimination, and so on. But the side effect is that actually a lot of group of community has been kind of gather around this idea of, okay, maybe we can use AI in order to do things. Like participatory AI is quite growing, like taking some piece of technology, trying to share knowledge between the community thanks to this data enabled technology. So, and actually myself as a researcher, I really try not to use this term, but at the same time, more and more I'm using it because it's a way to communicate with other disciplines somehow. And I'm not sure to be really comfortable with that. So, I mean, it's really open. But pragmatically, I found it inclusive in order to talk with others. So we don't know what we are talking about sometimes.
Thank you. There is another question in the audience.
Yeah, I have a question and specifically a comment on what Cristina just said, because you mentioned that we have power as designers, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're not the ones that are building the models or even kind of holding the reins in any way in the industry. So I think it's really about conveying what design has to offer. And then I agree completely with the comment from previously that the language so far has been very complicated as well. And it's difficult to convey what design can offer and bring in companies and in the industry. So I think in this symposium myself, I'd really love to be able to uncover, the ways to convey kind of the goodness design can bring in AI. And I was wondering if you had any experience with that in maybe developing frameworks or new ways to collaborate and making sure that the people that are actually holding the reins and designing these models can, use the design principles.
That's for you, huh?
Yeah. I don't know.
Thank you for the question.
The question is really important to tackle, but I feel a bit of an ick if you say that we do not have power, because then it means saying that, to me, it sounded almost like the design is inherently good, which is absolutely not the case, because it's not good, it's not neutral, definitely, and it's not good. It's not per se bad neither, but we do have power because we are in the room where we discuss the designs of technology, which is something that other people cannot do. And definitely we do not, to say it in a Marxist way, we do not have all the capital in our hand. Therefore, we cannot choose where the capital gets invested, and we do not have a political role overtly, but we do have a political role inherent in design processes, and we do need to practice our reflexivity and our critical lens all the time. That said, it's very much possible that design can support a discourse that goes towards justice and that goes towards dismantling certain structure of power as much as it's possible with the powers that we have. And there are processes that can be initiated even at the lowest level. And I will leave you with a fun fact from my past, where I was working with engineers which were fantastic and super well-meaning, but they wanted to program the kids that they were playing with the robot. And I was like, why would you want to program the kids? because the kids were unpredictable variables in their models, and therefore we needed to norm their behavior. And of course, it sounds like a fun fact of an afternoon that you pass integrating machine learning into robots, and it doesn't work. But still, it's an example of how we bring our values, our worldviews in what we do, and we need to take that into account. And definitely design can help us in creating methods and processes that we could use to systematically always take these into account and making sure that we have these in a way that is not just, in Latin we would say una tantum, so just not once in a while. But I would say that we do not have power nor privilege, it's a bit rich, as they would say on TikTok.
Can I jump in? Because I can relate to this question from past experience working in industry, that as a designer you might feel like the technical stuff is outside of your sphere of control. So practically speaking, I can understand the comment. That also points to, I guess, pragmatically to ways that you might address that. I'm also reminded of like previous waves of technology where designers would sit apart from software engineers, and that would lead to bad results, like just poorly designed and engineered products. And we've learned over time that it's better to mix these disciplines and have cross-functional teams and so on and so forth. So something similar could be done when it comes to collaborations between designers and machine learning engineers. I think because it's a relatively new discipline, machine learning engineering often is kind of siloed off from design practice in organizations. So I think that's one practical way of at least establishing those relationships. And then that could also be a leverage point for putting things on the agenda that you care about, and that should be taken into account when models are engineered. So what do we optimize and evaluate these models for example? You might have certain things to contribute there as a designer, as opposed to someone trained up to be a machine learning engineer. So I think in terms of like organizational politics, this is indeed quite interesting, is can you build alliances internally and perhaps find some engineers that would agree with you that the way these models are built at the moment is not up to scratch, and perhaps then from there you can work to some better situation.
Would you like to add something?
No.
No. A quick comment is I think it's kind of delusional sometimes when you see what happens in the industry of machine learning and AI. And you say, okay, what's power we have, what kind of agency we have on this technology and the way it's designed actually. I think not much, but the thing is, the fact that we are here, the fact that there is this kind of event is actually a form of power. To me, the fact that we have these questions and sharing our views and the need for design practices or artistic practices in relation to these technologies actually already a form of community building and construction of a community. And the thing is, we are all, or I don't know if you're old, but some of us are also teaching. So teaching is also a form of power, like how you could, teach your students not in a prescriptive way, but like maybe doing differently, practicing differently machine learning development and AI. So I guess these two things are already a first step or a form of power, and I guess needs more than all the political behind, all the economic that allows us maybe to be more, collaborating.
Yes, please.
I can just shout actually. This is somewhat complementary to the question about language. One of the nice things we can do as designers is create experience. Sometimes easier than words.
Sorry. Hello, streamers. One of the things we can do as designers is create experiences, which gets around some of the issues of language and communication. And I think you all have experience as quite a strong part of your practice. So I just want to hear what you have to say about what experience is for you and how you use it and what you're doing. In whatever order feels comfortable.
In experience in what way? To learn, to gain knowledge, to break down language?
Well, however you use
All
it,
of those
because
things
I think you create experiences for people, you create experiences for yourself that help you understand things, but there's something about that manifesting, experiencing, processing that seems important for our own understanding and what we communicate to others.
Yeah.
Externalizing.
Yeah. I think the one way that I'm using experience right now for an upcoming project is I'm trying to build a site-specific digital twin simulation kind of thing that, again, if you remember what I said before about queer practice, it's not about one-for-one necessarily, but it's about what kind of knowledge, what kind of reality are you trying to gain from something? What kind of futurity are you trying to create? So in this particular context, which is kind of like a regional context in Colombia with a very specific kind of community, we are using mainly sound to create this kind of simulation model based on the vibrations of a site, water, very, very, it's a little bit esoteric. But in working with this specific community, this specific territory, considering the different bodies, human and non-human, that are co-located in this territory and kind of representing or enacting particular data sets that are all kind of originated from sound, I'm trying to create a very particular kind of experience or a way of understanding how the technology can transition, but in a way that is very site-specific, community-specific, very related to them, not for everyone, just for them. I'm sure others will enjoy it, but that's not the point. And so I think this is very much a part of my practice, whether I build an experiment like that or whether I build a simulation of myself, it is in the doing and the interaction with the breaking of the system or recreating what the system is that you learn. So that is this kind of very embodied and situated, reflexive experience. And I think I use that is my primary way I am able to understand how you can maybe transition narratives or uses of functions, logic of AI.
Yeah, maybe I'm gonna jump in. So I guess in my work there are two ways I have kind of addressed this question in two ways. The first way is maybe more in line with what Grace just said, is like more in the art field. So we are trying to build the experience of artificial intelligence through performance. So typically I collaborated with a collective of artists based in Berlin called Fronte Vacuo. In the piece we did, it was about violence in Western algorithmic society. And the thing is, we designed this algorithm based on reinforcement learning that tried, in a really stubborn way, to find a set of parameter values, but constantly, like really, as machine does. I mean, like it's really an optimization process. And the thing is, this process of stubborn optimization that never ends was actually sonified and visualized in the scene. And the feeling it was really intense. Yeah, really intense. And you could clearly experience what this entity was doing. So, I mean, then the whole thing was really about violence with non-livings and living entities. And I guess the second way we try to do it is in AI literacy. So we are building a lot of interactive tools where people could train or teach, teach their own machine learning system. So I would like to have a model that is recognizing my own way to draw a car or to draw a house or to draw a doll, I will train the system to do it. And we did this with people that are not expert in machine learning at all, with kids or not, and or adults. And the thing is, there what we observe is really this experiential skills. So people could really know how the system works. I mean, or expect what the system will tell or will predict. Although they don't have any clues about how the model was working. So that's another way to create experience, or at least an experiential skill of the technology.
Yeah, so in my work, I mainly use another terrible word, transdisciplinary co-speculation, which an example of which was an installation that we brought at the Dutch Design Week last year, which was called the Monument of Motherhood. And it was meant to bring together all the stakeholders that are working on artificial wombs. So again, it's almost an embodied robot that is going to be carrying children that might be preterm or children that might not be viable in a human womb. And the idea there is that we did a lot of workshops with people that do not know nothing about the technology in itself and about machine learning data and how to embody all of the above together. And we tried to together controverse, use dilemmas, and then materiality to visualize how things could be and how things we would like to see. And eventually, we used a lot of techniques from modern human designs of perspective taking, principles that are coming from post-human feminism, again, the decentering, the idea of technobodies, etc. And eventually what turned out to be was an installation that we put at the Dutch Design Week to help people to connect almost viscerally to this artificial womb that was in nature and was connecting to mushrooms and trees and was telling the stories of people that gestated in it for a long time. And it was practically a contestation made apparent through materiality of the idea of robotizing reproduction and eugenetics through artificial wombs. And to me, that's a way to engage with data, with technology, with machine learning and embodied AI, a way to find common language and common ground with the community, but also a way to provoke that is not provocation for provocation's sake, that is not just like an artistic experience that could be very, very useful, but it's also meant to create debate. And after that, we use that type of debate to bring it back into the technical processes to inform both at the policy level and at the technology level way we should be pursuing. So that, to me, is also a way of resistance and destemification through materiality.
Thank you. Do you want to add something?
No, this was way too
Okay.
epic. I'm gonna.
Then I have a question, and then if the audience has others. So because we went a bit into a very dark hole, I have this feeling, no? So we are very aware that we have power, that we are dealing with a lot of risks and a lot of possibly negative outcomes and impacts in society. But I think also there is a reason why we as designers, as creative practitioners, engage with AI that's beyond having a job and everybody working on it. I think there must be something there. At least from my perspective, I see a bit of beauty in working with machine learning and machines and robots in general. So something about it. I want to bring a bit of joy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah. I mean, this is. I mean, and I think for me, this connects to what fascinates me about design. It's the same thing that fascinates me about technology, and in this case, then AI, which for me is just computation with agency, and you know, indeed, the fact that it can be used to improve our lives. I say that without shame. Although that term, of course, has been co-opted towards nefarious ends. But I think we should not like throw out the baby with the bathwater there, right? When we do point out potential harms. But this is the thing that. Sorry.
I wasn't
That's
familiar with that. It's a very horrible picture. Thank you.
But you know, I mean, we should reclaim that notion, I think, and then of course there's in my personal research and practice, it's not so much a creative material. It's more a thing in the world that I'd like to kind of appropriate and adapt towards other ends. But I totally see that aspect of it as well, and I think indeed it's fascinating for that reason too.
Thank you. Somebody else?
I have so much fun doing
Yes,
what
please, I
do.
imagine.
But no, yeah, I think I really enjoy breaking things and or just reality, not things in general. I really want to, you know, I think the everyone has seen The Matrix, no? And I don't know, I was very obsessed with Plato's Cave and The Matrix as a kid. So I'm always trying to just break reality. And I think, and this probably has something to do with my interest in work in futuring. And so I really do see that AI can be used in a way that really flattens any future potentiality or can open different future potentiality and reorient us towards kind of different outcomes to where we are today. And so I truly believe that AI can be used in that. It just needs to be kind of remade a little bit or pushed towards different things. I don't know, just different things.
Yeah, we'll say something, otherwise I will be the one that is negative about this technology. No, it's. I mean, I guess for me, it's really about the. I mean, if you like programming machines, for instance, if you like doing programmation, that's actually a really fascinating tool because, and that's how I came to it. Is like how you could program a machine without lines of code, with just examples, or you know. So in a way, you could this idea of machine learning is really to transmit or to convey a concept just through data and not through code. And this is really interesting, and it still fascinates me. And actually, I started to work with machine learning because when we were doing movement-based interaction with sound, working with artists. I mean, if you want to code, if you want to create an instrument by hand and try to recognize gesture just by lines of code without only rules, it's a nightmare. And if you are not like tech savvy, it's even worse. And so the idea was just, okay, demonstrate what you want, and then I will recognize it and will trigger the sound. And that's doesn't work always, but that's a lot of fun, and and it's still a lot of fun.
And there are things that happen also when things don't work.
Yeah, and then exactly, and then when you try to do it, obviously you try to you explore the edge cases. You look when it breaks. You look at the unclassified things. And then it opens a really whole world of explorations, definitely.
Do you want to add something?
I think that there's just a poetic side of it, like of making that is confrontational and interesting, and we might want to explore it a bit more beyond all the things that we have just discussed. And because that's also why we eventually end up there, besides all the political and economical things. There's a poetic of building things around us. They do affect our way of thinking and being. And I think we could look into that with poetic lens and confrontational lens, so that eventually we are going to future what we actually would like to see, rather than what we think that others would like to see for us. So I think it's also a way to reclaim human and also non-human agency, if we find a way through it.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one last tiny question, maybe? Yes, Joanna? Sorry, I know some people
no.
in the audience and I call them by name, but that's a very...
Yeah, so I wanted to ask about the more than human because I happen to know, I think all your practices intersect in some way with non-humans, with things, and with this maybe kind of future that we want to have, that is a future that is more than human, is more inclusive, and it's more open. And so I wanted to ask you, what is the role of AI in more than human design? So what do you think AI can do for more than human design, and also what more than human can do for AI? So what can it expose or help us understand about AI?
Very good question and a fantastic way to close, actually. Somebody would like to start? This is difficult, huh?
Yes, this is not a simple, quick question.
We said quick.
This is a spin-off panel for later, right?
Well,
So
we have
that's,
another spin-off panel.
For the dream.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Grace
I feel
is
like
ready.
I could just say,
Just go for
Grace can
it.
just do it.
because I'm thinking, I'm like very specifically thinking about this right now with what I'm trying to do in Colombia. There is like, what is non-human and how is the non-human kind of agency or intentionality represented in these systems, I think is really fascinating. And how humans relate or see themselves as a part of a greater non-human being. And again, this kind of gets into something that's a little bit metaphysical or esoteric, but specifically what I'm looking at when I'm trying to consider how to record vibrations, movement of water, sound that originates from within the earth, within a specific site to represent something that can be kind of co-performed or enacted with people. I think there is a lot to learn there, because if you think of typically what is represented within, let's say, a simulation model or a digital twin, there is always this level of abstraction, or if you even just think about Google Maps, or any kind of mapping, it's always abstracted. It's never really what is there. But what is the thing that we are trying to connect with that will give us knowledge into something? And so looking for non-human agency in these kind of very unfamiliar ways that we probably wouldn't typically connect with, that we don't have any practical use for yet, as an example. I think there is a lot that we can learn from that. Does that make sense?
Fantastic. I think we are going to close it here for now. Thank you very much to the panelists.
So we're going to take a break, and we're back at 2:30.